Recently, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who's running as an independent in the general election, drew controversy for suggesting that Joe Biden could pose more of a threat to democracy than Donald Trump. And yes, in case you were wondering, this does have to do with Kennedy Jr.'s anti-vax positions. So let's hear him make his case in an interview that aired on Monday of this week.
When people talk about the threat to democracy that Trump poses, do you really think that that is an equal evil to Biden?
I mean, listen, I can make the argument that President Biden is a much worse threat to democracy. And the reason for that is President Biden is the first candidate in history, the first president in history that has used the federal agencies to censor political speech, so to censor his opponents.
Donald Trump, of course, tried to overturn a free and fair election. He tried to overturn one, right? He's still fighting in court.
Yes.
How is that not a threat to democracy?
Well, I think that is a threat to democracy. If him trying to overthrow the election clearly is a threat to democracy. But the question was, who is a worse threat to democracy? And what I would say is, I'm not going to answer that question, but I can argue that President Biden is.
Now, he reiterated his claims a day later, saying President Biden has done something no other president in history has done to order media, particularly social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Google, to censor his political opponents. Specifically, Kennedy was referring to how the Biden administration pushed to get COVID misinformation removed from social media sites. And keep in mind that Kennedy himself was temporarily banned from Instagram during the pandemic for posting said misinformation. Now, the conservative Supreme Court happens to disagree with RFK Jr., my bad, I misspoke. Last month, the Supreme Court signaled it was not convinced by oral arguments alleging the Biden administration had overstepped in consulting with social media companies to stop the spread of COVID misinformation. The court had previously rejected a bid by Kennedy to intervene in the case. Kennedy has taken issue with how his comments on CNN were covered after a CNN digital article ran with the following headline: RFK Jr. argues that Biden is a bigger threat to democracy than Trump. And just recently, he went on to speak with Chris Cuomo on his News Nation program. But he also made a compelling case against the media for deliberately portraying both politicians as an existential threat. Let's take a look at what his argument was.
What I said was that I can make this argument, and I didn't say definitively whether I believed one or the other was more dangerous than democracy. I did say that I don't believe either of them are going to destroy democracy. Both sides are telling us the other guy is the end of the republic, but they're both lame duck presidents. We have strong institutions in our country. We have judiciary, we have the press to some extent, we've got Congress, and you have the military. You've got a lot of institutions that are bulwarks against a tyrant coming in and taking over democracy. So I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're all being told each one is a threat because it's a way of using fear to force us into a binary choice where we're forced into the canal, into this channel that nobody wants to go to, where we either have to vote for the lesser of two evils, and nobody wants to do that.
So I'm curious what you think, Cenk, because listen, he does in the middle of those rants, there are these little nuggets that I agree with. In fact, the data shows that, to Kennedy's point, many swing voters, or swing state voters, I should say, are absolutely fed up with having to pick between the lesser of two evils. Third party and independent candidates represent an unpredictable element in the election, drawing 15% across all of the swing states. That includes 11% who back Kennedy, whose support rises as high as 15% in Nevada and 13% in Arizona. An additional 10% are undecided across all 7 states. And I think that's part of the reason why Donald Trump has been critical of RFK Jr. recently. RFK's branding seems to attract a lot of Trump supporters or people who liked Trump but are now kind of souring on him and are looking for other options. And so just last week, Trump put out some statements that were highly critical of RFK Jr. And then he alleged that he wasn't worried about RFK because he's actually skimming votes from Biden. But anyway, I think the argument about undemocratic behavior is an interesting one. What say you?
Pausing here to deliver some honest truth as we do in our news coverage as well. TYT is facing challenges, guys, as the entire industry is. You know who could make the difference? You. If you hit the join button below, it's gonna make all the difference and keep us in business. We appreciate you, thank you. I'm gonna say a couple surprising things here. First, I'm gonna agree with Kennedy on 4 things. Then I'm gonna tell you why what he's saying is partly a trick. And so, be careful, about his tactic here. But then I have something even more surprising to say. All right, so first let me tell you the things I agree with. The headlines are wrong. He didn't say that Biden is definitely a bigger threat. He said he could make an argument for that. And you've got to be careful with that. And you know what the mainstream media loves to do. They love to smear anyone who's an outsider. So boom, they took that as an opportunity to do that. So he's right about that. Number 2, he's right to be concerned about Biden being a threat to democracy himself. Maybe not for the reasons that he's stating, but Biden did, support anti-democratic movements within the primary. The Democratic Party canceled the election in Florida. They try to keep out every candidate in North Carolina, Tennessee, etc. So they love to rig elections. Yes, I use the word rigged. Okay, so you can go cry about it if you're mainstream media. How about you do your job and talk about how they canceled the election in Florida in the primary and just declared Biden the winner? So if you're gonna make the argument that you're a champion of democracy, you should probably try it in your own primaries. Third thing he's right about is that the establishment in a lot of ways has killed democracy long before Donald Trump tried to. Now, how did they do it? They did it with donors. Donors now completely control our politics. And as I've explained in Justice is Coming, my book, there's been Princeton Northwestern study done over 20 years showing that if you're in the bottom 90% of Americans, your influence on policy is 0%. If you're in the top 10%, you have excellent influence on policy. Does that sound like a democracy to you? So we lost this a long time ago. Number 4 thing he's right about is they're constantly using fear, both sides. The right wing with the immigrants are coming, the LGBTQ people are coming, the Muslims are coming, be afraid, be afraid. Biden with, oh my God, Trump's a monster, he's gonna take away everything that you care about, be afraid, be afraid. So that's a lot I agree with RFK Jr. on. So the reason why I say it's a trick though is, he's trying to have it both ways because he's trying to get Republican and Democratic voters. So he wants to say something that'll appeal to Republican voters. Or maybe Biden's a bigger threat to democracy. Come Republicans, vote for me. Then when people get mad at him and yell at him and he thinks he's gonna lose Democratic voters, he comes out and goes, no. I meant this, and this. So that's the old plausible deniability trick, right? Where you say something to get votes from one side, and then when you're caught, you say, well, technically, I didn't say that. But brother, why did you frame it that way? When I say it, I'm very clear about what I'm saying. Whereas he's now become a little bit of a politician and hence plays these games. So, but the most surprising thing is, for the first time today, I'm now considering RFK Jr. Now,
what?
I know, shocking, right? And no, hold on. Let me tell you why. So is it because I think, maybe he's right about vaccines? No, he's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs on vaccines. And on several other things where he believes in conspiratorial theories that I don't believe in at all. So why on God's green earth would I consider RFK Jr.? Well, until now I hadn't because of those crazy things that I don't come anywhere near believing. But I thought about it, Anna, and Trump I would never support in a million years. Biden is now funding a genocide and is an awful choice, has been corrupt his whole life. You're never gonna get anything but corruption from Joe Biden. So am I positive RFK Jr. would be worse? He would probably, on health and science, definitely he would be worse. But on everything else, like anti-establishment, money out of politics, I'm not positive RFK Jr. would be worse than Biden.
Oh, okay. I mean,
no. Anna, that is not an endorsement or any kind of like, go get him, rah, 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 RFK Jr. statement. That's a statement of how awful our choices are. Like that.
I agree with you on that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that, the RFK Jr. is a better option. And I don't know if you saw these headlines. We didn't cover it on the show, but he did reach out to a very specific person to be his VP. And she rejected him because she thinks that there's a good possibility Trump will ask her to be VP, and that person is Tulsi Gabbard. And by the way, I'm going to put it here right now. I am predicting that it is likely Trump is going to pick her for VP. I can feel it. I can feel it in my gut.
You might be right about that. Look, anyone who considers Tulsi Gabbard already is another massive strike. Again, all we have is awful choices. So I'll end on not a hopeful thing because it's not going to happen, but I'll tell you who, if they ran, I know they don't believe it. I know I can't get it through his thick head that this is true. But if Jon Stewart ran right now as a third party candidate, he would win. He would flat out win. Because that's a guy who's honest. His positions are almost identical to the American people's positions. He's against corruption. He's a decent human being and he's smart. Oh my God, and he's funny, he's entertaining. People love people that are entertaining. Jon Stewart would win as a third party candidate. For God's sake, John, God damn it, do something. Don't leave us with these horrible options.
My God, that'd be amazing. And look, I obviously don't agree with Jon Stewart on everything, but I mean, if you look at the field right now and the possibility of Jon Stewart being an option, I mean, where's the question? There is no question. He would totally get my support, hands down.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.